He thought the chapter was over, the divorce papers were signed. The house divided, and the memories buried under years of silence. But fate had a cruel sense of timing. Just when he believed he'd moved on, a late-night phone call shattered his world. "Sir, she's in the ICU." His pen had signed her out of his life, but her last whisper would pull him right back in. What happens when the woman you let go becomes the one your soul still belongs to? This is a story of love, guilt, and the words left unsaid, where death doesn't come as an ending, but as a mirror to everything he never said when she was alive. The pen felt heavier than usual that morning. Ethan's hand trembled slightly as he scribbled his name across the final page. The divorce papers that would end 5 years of love, laughter, and pain. Across the table sat Claire, quiet, fragile, her once bright eyes dull with exhaustion. The lawyer droned on about formalities, but Ethan's mind was far away. He wanted to look at her, to say something, but the words refused to come. When it was over, she gave a small, polite smile. "Take care of yourself, Ethan," she whispered, gathering her papers. He just nodded, pretending to be fine, pretending that it didn't feel like something sacred had just been buried alive. Outside. It was raining, that soft, cold drizzle that always reminded him of her laughter. He stood by his car, watching her drive away. That was the last time he saw her, until the call came. 2 years later, Ethan's life looked perfect from the outside. He was the CEO everyone envied, sharp suits, luxury cars, and a heart encased in armor. But every night, when the noise of success faded, silence crept in. He'd sit by his window, glass of whiskey in hand, scrolling through old photos on his phone. Her smile was still there, trapped in pixels, haunting him quietly. Then, one evening, his phone buzzed. An unknown number. "Mr. Cole," a soft voice said. "This is St. Mary's Hospital. You were listed as an emergency contact for Miss Claire Bennett." The glass slipped from his hand, shattering. His chest tightened. "What happened?" he demanded. "She's in the ICU. You should come quickly." The drive to the hospital felt endless. Every red light, every turn, it all mocked him. She was supposed to be fine. The last message she'd sent still lingered in his phone. "Don't worry, I'm okay." He never replied. He'd told himself it was better that way. The hospital smelled like disinfectant and sorrow. Nurses rushed by, machines beeped, and the air carried the sound of quiet suffering. He reached the ICU door, his hands cold. A nurse stopped him. "Are you family?" He hesitated. I used to be." When she nodded and let him through, the sight on the other side stole his breath. Claire lay motionless on the bed, her skin pale, her breathing shallow, tubes tracing across her fragile frame. The monitors flickered softly, counting down moments he couldn't control. He stepped closer, afraid his touch might break her. Her hair, once shining and wild, was now thin and dull, but her face, it was still hers. Still beautiful, still home. Her eyelids fluttered, and she turned her head slightly. "Ethan," she whispered. He froze. For a second, it was as if time bent, as if all the years, all the anger, all the distance disappeared. "I'm here," he said quietly, gripping her hand. It was cold, too cold. She gave the faintest smile. "You came." "Of course, I did." He lied. He didn't want her to know that if the nurse hadn't called, he might never have known. That he had spent so long pretending she didn't matter just to stop missing her. Her gaze drifted to his wrist. "You still wear it," she murmured. He looked down the old silver watch she'd given him on their first anniversary. "Yeah," he whispered. "It still works." Her eyes softened. "So do you, even after everything." He didn't know what to say. Words felt useless. He wanted to apologize for not calling, for not fighting, for letting her leave when he should have stopped her, but all that came out was silence. A tear rolled down her cheek. "You were always so quiet when it mattered most," she said with a sad smile. And then, the monitor beeped louder. Nurses rushed in, voices urgent. Ethan was pushed back as they surrounded her. He watched helplessly, heart pounding, as the line on the screen began to flatten. "Claire," he shouted, but his voice broke. For a split second, her eyes met his again. Her lips moved faintly, shaping one final word, his name. And then the sound came, the long, endless tone that meant everything was over. Ethan stood frozen, numb, as the nurses lowered their heads. One of them gently covered Claire's face with the white sheet. The pen that had ended their marriage had been easy to lift. But now, even the air felt impossible to carry. He walked out of the ice, the sound of her last whisper echoing in his mind, a sound softer than breath, stronger than any scream. And for the first time in years, Ethan felt the weight of silence crush him completely. The hospital corridors felt endless. Ethan moved through them like a ghost, his suit rumpled, eyes red, hands trembling. Every step echoed like guilt. He'd walked out of that ICU a different man than the one who entered. A man stripped of pride, stripped of purpose. At the reception desk, a nurse caught up to him. "Mr. Cole," she said softly. Before it happened, she asked us to give you this." She held out a small envelope. His name, Ethan, written in her familiar, looping handwriting. The sight of it almost made his knees buckle. He took it wordlessly and walked to the empty hospital chapel. The stained glass windows glowed faintly in the morning light. He sat on the wooden bench, the envelope trembling in his hands. When he finally tore it open, a folded piece of paper fell out, and something else, a small ultrasound photo, 2 faint shapes, 2 tiny lives. He froze. His chest tightened so hard he couldn't breathe. The letter unfolded, her words running like soft whispers across the page. "Ethan, if you're reading this, I'm probably gone. And that's okay, I've made peace with it, but I couldn't leave without telling you the truth I hid the longest. After the divorce, I found out I was pregnant. I wanted to tell you so many times, but every time I tried, I remembered the look in your eyes when you signed those papers, the relief, the distance. I thought you'd moved on, so I didn't want to burden you." His vision blurred. He clutched the ultrasound photo tighter, tears spilling down his face. The twins, a boy and a girl, didn't make it. Complications. "The doctors said I was lucky to survive, but I don't think I ever really did. I just existed after that. Every birthday, every night, I wished you'd call. I wanted you to know that despite everything, I never stopped loving you. You weren't perfect, but you were mine, and that was enough." He couldn't read further. His body shook, grief clawing its way out after years of silence. The paper slipped from his hands, floating to the chapel floor. She had carried all of this alone, while he'd been building empires and chasing pride. She had been dying quietly, holding the pieces of their love like broken glass. Ethan leaned back on the pew, his head in his hands. "Why didn't you tell me, Claire?" he whispered hoarsely. "Why didn't you let me fix it?" But deep down, he knew the answer. He hadn't been there when she needed him most. He'd been too proud, too focused on winning arguments instead of hearts. Hours later, he stood outside in the rain again, the same kind that had fallen the day they signed the papers. But this time, it felt different. It felt like the world was weeping with him. He went home, but home was no longer a place, just a museum of memories. The walls echoed her laughter, the faint scent of her perfume still clinging to his old sweater. He opened a drawer and pulled out their wedding photo. She was smiling, eyes full of life. He stared at it until the image blurred. Then he whispered, "You were right. I never said what mattered most." That night, Ethan didn't sleep. He went through every old message, every picture, every voicemail, even the ones he thought he'd deleted. Each one cut deeper than the last. At dawn, he returned to the hospital. The nurse looked surprised. "She's already been moved to the morgue, sir." "I know," he said quietly. "I just need one last moment." Inside the cold room, he found her peaceful, still, covered gently with a white sheet. He sat beside her, reaching out to hold her hand. It was cold, but he held it anyway, pretending for a moment that time could bend, that maybe she could hear him one last time. "I found your letter," he whispered. "And I found them. Our twins." His voice broke. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." He brushed his thumb over her fingers, tears falling freely now. "I thought success would fill the space you left, but it didn't. I had everything except you. And now," he swallowed hard, "now I have nothing." He placed the ultrasound photo beside her hand. "You won't be alone anymore. They're with you now." Then he took off the silver watch she'd given him, the one he'd never stopped wearing, and placed it on the table beside her. "It's time," he said quietly. "Time to let go." But as he turned to leave, something strange happened. A nurse entered with a hesitant look. "Mr. Cole, there's something you should see." She handed him another envelope. "This was found in her apartment, addressed to you. It seems she didn't send it." His trembling fingers opened it. Inside, her handwriting danced again. "If fate ever gives us another chance, Ethan, don't let silence win." He read it over and over, the words burning into his soul, and for the first time since she left, Ethan smiled through his tears. Because somehow, he knew she hadn't really gone. She lived in every heartbeat that remembered her. She lived in every breath that whispered her name. She lived in the love he could never replace. And as the rain fell outside, Ethan finally let himself cry, not just for the woman he lost, but for the man he could have been if he'd just said what his heart always wanted to say. Weeks passed, But for Ethan, time didn't move. It only replayed. Every sunrise reminded him of her voice. Every silence reminded him of her absence. He had canceled meetings, ignored calls, and vanished from the CEO world. The man who once ruled boardrooms now spent his mornings at her grave, sitting beneath the soft willow tree. Where she rested, each visit began the same way, with flowers in hand and words he never had the courage to say when she was alive. "I should have fought for you," he murmured one morning. "I should have held on." The world knew Ethan Cole as a ruthless millionaire, but here, he was just a man broken, stripped of ego, and learning how to grieve. Until one day, something shifted. As he was leaving the cemetery, a little girl, maybe 6 or 7, ran past him, chasing a paper plane. Her laughter echoed light, free, familiar. She stumbled, and instinctively, Ethan caught her before she fell. "You okay?" he asked gently. The girl nodded, brushing dust from her tiny hands. "Thank you, Mr." Then she looked up, and for a moment, Ethan forgot how to breathe. Her eyes, those eyes, hazel brown, the same shade as Claire's. Before he could speak, a woman hurried toward them. "Mia, I told you not to run off like that." The woman stopped when she saw him. "Mr. Cole." Ethan frowned, trying to place her face. "You know me?" She nodded. "I'm Dr. Lena Ward. I was Claire's physician. I took care of her near the end." His chest tightened. You knew her?" "Yes," she said softly. "She talked about you often. Even when she couldn't speak much, she'd whisper your name." He swallowed hard, glancing back at the little girl, still holding her paper plane. "And her, Mia?" Dr. Ward hesitated. She's someone very special. Claire helped deliver her when her biological mother passed away. She stayed with Mia for months before she..." The doctor trailed off, guilt flickering in her eyes. "Claire left instructions for Mia's care. She wanted her to be adopted by someone kind, but no one came forward." Ethan's voice was barely a whisper. "No one." Dr. Ward shook her head. "Claire used to say, if Ethan ever comes back, tell him, Mia deserves what I couldn't give her, love without fear." The words shattered what was left of him. Ethan dropped to one knee, looking at the child, her innocence, her quiet wonder. "Hi, Mia," he said softly. "Do you remember Claire?" The girl nodded. "She was my angel. She told me stories when I couldn't sleep. She said someone would come one day who'd make sure I never feel alone again." He smiled faintly through tears. "Did she now?" Mia giggled, then handed him her paper plane. "It's for you." He unfolded it gently. Inside, drawn in crayon, were 3 stick figures: a woman, a man, and a little girl holding hands beneath the sun. Above it, written in uneven letters, "Family." Something inside Ethan broke open completely. That night, he didn't return to his mansion. He drove aimlessly, her voice, her letter, her laughter echoing in his mind, and Mia's drawing pressed to his chest like a heartbeat. He stopped at the orphanage. The next morning, Dr. Ward met him at the gate. "Mr. Cole, are you sure about this?" I'm sure." He interrupted quietly. "Claire wanted her safe. I owe her that much." The adoption papers took months, but Ethan didn't care. For the first time, his world had a purpose that wasn't about profit. He started working remotely, spending his days teaching Mia how to paint, how to ride a bike, how to smile without fear. Every night, before bed, she'd ask, "Do you think my angel sees us?" And every night, Ethan would whisper, "Yes, sweetheart." She never stopped watching. One evening, as the golden light of sunset filled the room, Mia pointed at the framed photo of Claire on the mantel. "She's beautiful," she said. "Was she your friend?" Ethan paused, then smiled softly. "She was my everything." He lifted Mia into his arms. "You know, she saved me twice." "How?" "First, by loving me," he said, kissing her forehead. "And now, through you." Mia giggled, resting her head on his shoulder. "Then I'll save you too." "Okay." Tears blurred his vision. "You already have." Years passed, and though success returned, Ethan never returned to who he was. His name still appeared in magazines, but now, the headlines read differently. "Millionaire CEO opens foundation in memory of late wife." The Claire Hope Foundation, built for women and children who had nowhere to go, just like Mia once did. Every wall of that building told her story, not of loss, but of rebirth. At the grand opening, reporters surrounded him, microphones flashing. "Mr. Cole, why this foundation?" one asked. Ethan looked at the framed photo of Claire beside the ribbon. "Because love doesn't die," he said simply. "It just changes form." Mia tugged at his sleeve, holding another paper plane. "For her." He smiled. "Always?" Together, they released it into the sky. A small, fragile piece of paper soaring higher and higher, disappearing into the golden light. And as it vanished, Ethan whispered to himself, "You kept your promise, Claire, and I'm keeping mine." Because, in the end, the ruthless millionaire hadn't just lost the woman he loved, he'd found the family she left behind, and somehow, that made her love eternal. Love doesn't always end, sometimes, it transforms. Ethan spent years chasing power, losing the one soul who truly saw him, but when fate handed him a child with her eyes and her laughter, he realized love never really leaves. It only waits for the heart to listen. This story isn't just about regret, it's about redemption, healing, and the kind of love that lives beyond goodbye, because sometimes, the greatest second chances come wrapped in the smallest hands. If this story touched you, don't just scroll away. Like, share, and subscribe for more deeply emotional stories that remind us what truly matters in life: love, forgiveness, and the courage to begin again. Watch till the end. Every heartbeat in this story carries a truth we all need to hear. Even when love fades, it never disappears.